Hello and welcome to this short video talking you through a method of why when we divide numbers in standard form we're allowed to just say, well, I'm going to pick that 8 and that 4 out and divide those two, and I'm going to pick these powers of 10 out and divide those two. I don't think a lot of videos out there explain why we're allowed to do this, so hopefully this will give it a bit more sense and introduce what's going on when we're dividing. So first I want to look at what does division mean to me. Well, I think any division question is really a fractions question. This is the same as writing 8 times 10 to the 4 over 4 times 10 squared. And my next step, in the same way when we multiply fractions, so if I had 2/3 times 4/5, for example, this would equal 2 times 4 over 3 times 5. I can break it up in the other way. So I can say, well, this is exactly the same as 8 over 4. Oh, whoops, not 4 over 4. 8 over 4 times 10 to the 4 over 10 squared. Okay? So I'm just using the rules of fractions to help me write it in isolation. Now, I can now treat this one by one. I can think about, well, what is 8 over 4? This is 8 divided by 4, which is 2. And what is 10 to the power of 4 divided by 10 squared? Well, we would subtract the powers in this case, so this would be 10 squared itself. Okay, and notice that this is why a lot of example videos were just talking about linking them straight away. It's because we're able to separate those parts of the division into separate fractions, really. Okay, so let's have a look at this second example. So again, I've written it as a fraction straight away. So 3 times 10 to the 10 divided by 4 times 10 to the 13. I can think of this as 3 times 10 to the 10 as a fraction over 4 times 10 to the 13, and write it as 3/4 times 10 to the 10 over 10 to the 13. Now, because we're writing this in standard form, I'm not going to leave it as 3/4, I'm going to write it in its decimal form, 0.75, and 10 to the 10 minus 13 is going to become 10 to the minus 3. Now this is not quite in standard form because our 0.75 is not a number between 1 and 10. But if I times it by 10 and make it 7.5, it will be. Now I should adjust the other number in standard form. So as 0.75 has been made 10 times bigger, my power of 10 needs to be made 10 times smaller. So this becomes times 10 to the minus 4. Okay. My last example, again, similar approach. We've got 1.6 times 10 to the minus 7 divided by 2 times 10 to the minus 20. So I'm going to write this as 1.6 times 10 to the minus 7 over 2 times 10 to the minus 20. And again, breaking it into fractions, I've got 1.6 over 2 times 10 to the minus 7 divided by 10 to the minus 20. Now this is a little bit tricky. If you don't have a calculator to do that, we can now start manipulating this fraction on the left. So this would be 16 over 20. And this will now simplify. 4 goes into both of these. So this simplifies into 4/5, which is 0.8. Okay, and this is going to times by, now 10 to the minus 7 is going to subtract minus 20, which will become 10 to the minus 7 add 20, 2 negatives making a positive. So this is 0.8 times 10 to the positive 13, minus 7 add 20, 13. Again, my final answer is not quite in standard form, so I can now manipulate it. I can make it 10 times bigger 8. If I make this 10 times bigger, I should adjust my number in standard form, sorry, my power of 10 to be 10 times smaller to balance it out. So this will be 10 to the power of 12. Okay, so this is how I like to think about dividing numbers in standard form, as two separate fractions. You might even be given a question that is already in this form. I think it's actually a better form for something to be in. Okay, I hope this helps. Any questions, do let me know.